Guys, welcome back. Today's video is part 6 of my semi-annual favorites, and today I'll be sharing my favorite eyeshadow palettes with you guys. I think this is the one I was the most excited to make just because eyeshadow palettes are my weakness when it comes to makeup. I do have a really large collection, so the selection process was kind of difficult for this video because I did need to narrow it down to just my favorites, and unfortunately I do have a lot that I really love, but the way that I ended up sort of picking the top 8 that I'm going to share with you today, and I know 8 sounds like a lot, but I'll get to that in a second. And when I thought about favorites, the thing that came to mind was which ones do I actually use and reach for the most? Like, not which ones are in the prettiest packaging, or not, you know, which ones have a really pretty color scheme. It was really just based more on function and formula, and like I said, the ones that I actually reach for the most. So these 8 palettes are going to be broken up into 4 categories. So I'll share my favorite cool tone palettes with you guys, my favorite warm tone palettes, my favorite colorful palettes, and then the last category will be my favorite sort of everyday neutral palettes. And what I did was choose a high-end and a drugstore from each category that are the ones that I just reach for the most. And also I just wanted to quickly mention that I am going to film this one a little bit differently. What I'm going to do is just turn the camera around and focus on the products themselves, because when it comes to palettes, I'm going to be talking a lot about layouts and where certain shades are, and I think it's easier to just show the product on camera rather than try to hold it up and point this way and try to look and see what I'm doing. So I hope you guys don't mind, and without further ado, let's get into the video. First, let's start with cool tone palettes, and my favorite high-end cool tone palette is definitely the Lorac Pro 2. I love this palette for the range of colors that it has. You have your more nude wearable shades down on this side, and then it also has some deeper smokier shades. I also love how Lorac lays out their Pro palettes with the top row being matte and the bottom row being shimmer, because it just makes it easier. You don't have to think too hard about, you know, when you're looking for a certain finish, where to go. I also love their formula of the Pro palettes because it's super pigmented, but also extremely soft and powdery. And I know some people aren't going to agree with me on that one, but I do love the softer shadows because I just think they blend out easier. If you're not a pro or a makeup artist and you know, you don't want a ton of full pigment right off the bat, I like how these kind of blend away a little bit, because you can always add more, but it's hard when you go in with a super like dense pigmented shadow to then spend a lot of time blending out. So I do really like the formula of this one, and I just think the colors are beautiful. I tend to reach for the shade Nectar a lot in my crease, but light brown is also an amazing crease color, as well as cool gray. You have your matte ivory shade up here, as well as this really shimmery white shade is perfect for like an inner corner highlight. And the shades Rosé and Mocha are just beautiful on the lid, especially when you have hooded eyes like I do and you want sort of a lighter lid color to make your lid stand out a little more. They're gorgeous. So all in all, I think it's a really well thought out palette, and you can create a ton of looks with it. You have 16 shades in here, but it's also a very small and compact design, so I appreciate that as well. So here's what it looks like swatched, and you can really see how beautifully pigmented these shades are. In particular, this navy color is one of my favorite blues because it's just so rich and buttery and pigmented, especially the matte shades. It's really hard to find matte shades that are this smooth, but they really are so silky and so easy to blend. And these down here, the shimmers, I mean, this is just one swipe. You can really see just how like smooth they are. They're not chunky. They're just so finely milled. One of the reasons I absolutely love Lorac's eyeshadows. And then when it comes to cool toned affordable palettes, my favorite these days has been the Colorpop Fame palette. This is a relatively new palette. It's only been out for about a month, but the first 2 weeks I had this, I wore it every single day without dipping into any other palettes because I just kept coming up with such pretty combinations. So I was loving like this deep forest green with this grayish green shade on the lid, or this really pale pink with this mauve shade and the purple. So I do think it's a very versatile palette. My one complaint about it would be that some of the shades, like these two, look kind of similar, or this one and this one. I mean, this one's a little more pink and this one's a little more bronze, but on the lid, there's not a whole lot of difference. Same thing with these 3 right here. So I think they kind of repeated some shades a little bit, and that's my one gripe about this palette. But overall, I think there's still enough shades in here where you get a good variety. Plus, I just love Colourpop's formula. I collect all of their palettes because they're so affordable, but they feel high-end. They're super blendable, but not overly so, where they just completely blend away. They're also super pigmented, but not too pigmented where they're hard to work with. I think they're just the perfect happy medium, and I absolutely love, love, love their formulas, and I'm happy that they came out with a cool tone palette as well. So here it is swatched. You can really see how rich and pigmented these shades are, and again, I think some of the shades that look really similar in the pan, like these two here and these two, they're definitely different, but once they're on your eyes and blended out a little bit, they kind of look similar. So I do wish they had a little bit more variety in this palette, but it doesn't stop me from truly enjoying it because it is such a really pretty cool tone palette with an excellent formula. So moving on to warm tone palettes, I would say my favorite warm tone palette has to be the Anasazi Beverly Hills Soft Glam palette. If you had asked me last year what my favorite was, I probably would have said Modern Renaissance, but this one has taken its place. It is kind of like a sister palette to Modern Renaissance because it does have a couple of repeat shades in here, but I don't mind that at all. And in fact, I think they took some of the shades I used to wear from Modern Renaissance the most and put them in here. So it just rounds out this palette so nicely and basically pushed me to only use this one. I haven't even touched Modern Renaissance in a while. Even though I love that one, I think it's just deeper and smokier overall. And this one, I think suits my lighter skin tone just a little bit better. And like, for example, these two colors, Orange Soda and Burnt Orange, are such beautiful crease colors on me. Also, Dusty Rose is stunning. I love this color. And I like that it skews overall a little bit lighter, but there are still some really deep smoky shades if you want to amp up a look a little bit. So I just think it's such a well-rounded palette. Not to mention the formula is amazing. So let me show you some swatches really quick so you can really see what these colors look like against my skin tone. It's so pretty. So as you can see, these were really beautiful on a lighter skin tone, and I think they just suit me a little bit better than some of those deeper reds and burgundies and oranges that I wouldn't normally wear on an everyday basis, but these shades are ones that I can reach for so easily, because they're still warm toned, but they're not dark. So I think that's what I love most about this palette. And then when it comes to affordable warm tone palettes, the Colourpop Give It To Me Straight is definitely the one that I reach for the most. Again, I think because it's warm toned, but it's not overly dark. There is one burgundy shade in here, but overall it is more pinky, like rosier warm tones, which I just gravitate toward more than the reds and the oranges in a lot of the other warm palettes that I have. And again, Colourpop's formula is one of my favorites at any price point. You just can't go wrong with these, and they're just so affordable yet so amazing. So let me show you some swatches of this one really quickly. So pigmentation wise, I think that this could definitely hold its own against Soft Glam or any other high-end palette. It's just beautiful and smooth and easy to blend, and I just love the color scheme on this one. I love all the rosy tones. I think they're just so flattering, and yeah, it's just one of my absolute favorite palettes to wear. And then as far as colorful palettes go, my favorite on the high-end side is the Too Faced Chocolate Gold palette. Probably not a surprise to you guys because you've heard me mention this a few times, but I just think this palette is so well done. And honestly, when I first saw it, I really didn't think I wanted it. It just looked like it was too bright for me, but as it turns out, there are really only a few colors that I probably wouldn't wear on an everyday basis. The rest are so easy to wear though, and as I've been using this palette more, I've discovered that. And really what I love about it is, even though it's mostly shimmer shades, you do have these 4 matte base shades that you can start your look with. So you have your matte ivory that goes up to your brow bone, and then you have a really pretty light brown transition color, or if you have a deeper skin tone, you could use this one as a transition, and then you have your matte black. And then the rest of the shades you can just pop on the lid for a really beautiful wash of color. And I just think the formula on this one is absolutely their best formula yet. So when you see it swatched, the shimmers just look like liquid metal on the skin, and that's just one swipe. And I think that's what really sold me on this palette when I was at Sephora, and I just swatched a couple of shades thinking I didn't really want this palette, and I left with it because it's just an amazing formula. And I know Too Faced can be very hit or miss, but in this case, they really got this right. Also, it has that really nice chocolate scent that their other chocolate palettes have, so I just think this is a beautiful palette. And then when it comes to affordable, colorful palettes, palettes, the Zodiac from BH Cosmetics is definitely my favorite. I think this is an awesome value, first of all, because you get so many shades in here. Plus, I just love the layout and the whole idea of it. So you have this outer ring here of baked shimmer shades, and I think BH Cosmetics makes one of the best baked eyeshadows. They're just so amazingly pigmented, even dry, but if you wet them, they're even more intense. And then you have this inner ring of matte shades, and I will say BH Cosmetics makes okay mattes for the most part, but these are at just another level. They're high-end quality for sure. They're really pigmented, super velvety and blendable. They're absolutely beautiful, which you'll see in the swatches in a second. And then in the center, you have this really pretty highlight shade that you could either use on the face or just as an eye highlighter. Another thing I love about this palette is it's colorful, but it's also muted, so you're not gonna find a lot of really bright neon colors or anything like that. I would definitely wear all of these shades with no problem because you can definitely create more of like a neutral look with just maybe a little pop of color, and nothing is overwhelming or crazy on your eyes, so I love that about it. So as you can see, the pigmentation on this is really insane, and I think this is the first BH Cosmetics palette that I really felt like could compete with a higher end brand. And now ever since then, they've been doing a lot better with their formulas. I have the Festival palette as well. And that one, the formula is also incredible. It's not a baked formula, it's just a regular pressed powder, but it's stunning. It's just a little bit too bright for me. I do like the more muted tones of this one, just a little bit more. So I would definitely recommend this one over that one, but if you're into bright shades, you should definitely check that one out because it's beautiful as well. And then in the last category, we have my two favorite tried and true neutral palettes. These are palettes that are just my go-tos, and out of all the ones I showed you today, definitely my top two. So on the high end, we have the Tartelette in Bloom palette from Tarte, and this one has been a favorite of mine for years, ever since it came out. I still haven't found one that I like better because I just think it is such a well-rounded palette with an amazing formula. So you have a row here of your more rosy tone neutrals, then you have really like neutral browns in the middle, and then on the top you have your more taupey cool tone shades. So it's really just such a versatile palette, and one that if you're traveling that you would take with you because you can create so many different looks with it, and it's just so easy to wear. It's the one that I grab when I just don't want to think about, you know, creating a look or doing anything too fancy. I just want a really beautiful neutral eye. I love this palette for that. Formula wise, I also think it's awesome. I really enjoy the Tarte Amazonian Clay formula. It's just super pigmented and also super, super soft. I know some people think they're a little powdery, but for me, I think that it just adds to the ease of blending. And when people ask me what's a great first palette to try, I always recommend this one because it's just so user-friendly and easy, and you can just create such pretty looks with it. Even though it looks basic, it's just so easy to wear every day. And then when it comes to drugstore eyeshadow palettes, I don't think anybody beats Milani. They have been my favorite for years. I love their Everyday Eyes palettes, the ones that have the 6 shades. And when they came out with these larger palettes, I was just so excited because they really truly have, I think, the best formula at the drugstore. And what I love about this one is that, again, like the Tarte, it has a really nice mix of both warm and cool shades. The only difference with this one is it's an all matte palette, which again definitely has its advantages, especially now that I'm getting older. I've come to appreciate matte shades a lot more because they don't highlight texture on my eyelids. Plus, I feel like there aren't a lot of all matte options at the drugstore, and this one is just fabulous. And the formula also reminds me a lot of the Colourpop shadows, where they're just a really happy medium between being too pigmented and not pigmented enough, and also they blend beautifully on the eyes without too much fallout or being too powdery. So overall, I think this is a really solid choice from the drugstore and can definitely compete with some of my higher end palettes. So I reach for this one all the time. Alright guys, that does it for today's video. I hope you enjoyed seeing all of my favorite palettes. Let me know in the comments below what your favorite palettes are. And if you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. Also, don't forget to subscribe to my channel so that you'll be notified of future videos. Thank you guys so much, and I will see you in the next one.